Welcome to the New Dentist Study Club podcast. My name is Dr. Sanj Mohanta. We're going to learn about clinical management, practice management, and the emotional management of dentistry. Let's learn how to be happier in dentistry. Let's go. Hello, everyone. I have the pleasure of talking with Nicole Robbins and introducing you all to her. Hello, Nicole.
Hello, team. How are we doing?
So I have to tell everyone how we met. We met through a matchmaker.
Yeah,
I
stupid.
didn't know they were mentor matchmakers,
Yeah.
but we both have a friend in common, Courtney, who's a hygienist in Alberta, and she's with Smile & Co. And I met her in Saskatchewan in September, and we got along really well. We stayed connected on Instagram. And then a couple of weeks ago, she's like, Sanj, I met this dentist who's looking for a female mentor, and I thought of you. And I thought, this is kind of strange because I'm in Ontario. Courtney's in Alberta. She just met another dentist from Alberta. So I said, okay, sure, I'd love to do that. I'd love to mentor. And then she hooked me up with you, Nicole. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I just listened to you on Neki and Akil's podcast, Hi, I'm Doctor. And I was like, I wanted to meet you after listening to that podcast. And
Aw.
then last weekend, we both happened to be at the Pacific Dental Conference in Vancouver. And strangely enough, we kept bumping into each
Yeah.
other,
Yeah.
even though there were 15,000 people there.
And we weren't even trying.
I know. So we had our Vancouver romance. We got along really well. And it's like, this is meant to be. Like we had Cupid, we were struck by Cupid's arrow. So,
hmm And
so
it's funny.
I go
I was
ahead. Yeah.
listening to a podcast prior, a couple weeks prior to PDC, and it was um, a lady who's very successful in the tech world,
Mhm.
and she had a chapter on how a lot of young professionals are looking for a mentor, and especially females, because it's a more or less new space for us. And she called the chapter, Are You My Mother? And she's like, You my mother, are you my mother? And
Like that
she was,
Dr. Seuss book.
yeah. And she was emphasizing how you can't just go and say, You're my mentor. Like you can't just go
Yeah.
with someone and expect that relationship. And I didn't have that expectation of you. I mean, Courtney, so lovely to just know that it would click, but that's the key is that it needs to be a mutually beneficial relationship and it needs to be natural. You can't just go to a senior that you admire and expect them to teach you things. You need to come with questions, you need to come with value that engages and challenges you to make it worth your time because time is precious. And if I can provide some new perspectives for you and you can give me hope, teach me all the things, then it's a beautiful thing. But, just speaking on, I don't want people to just expect to go up to anyone and like magically have a mentor. We've spent time figuring out who we are, and the person who knew us knew who we were very
Yes.
well. And that's why it was quite easy for us. But I don't, it took me 3 years to find you, I suppose. So,
Oh, I'm glad we met. It was a match made in heaven. And I like
yeah.
how you mentioned that, you have to make sure that the mentorship is mutually beneficial because everyone says that new dentists should find a mentor, but it's so hard to find one. And then once you find one, you don't know what to do with that mentorship relationship. And
But
it's
it should
so,
never be that question.
yeah.
It should just, if you find yourself questioning what do I ask them or how do I proceed with
Yes.
this, it's probably not the right mentorship. Like it should
Yeah,
just unfold naturally and grow. Yeah.
it's good. And I like to point out that you actually asked for help. So it
Oh,
was great that you went to Courtney and said, can you connect me with someone?
yeah.
So that's what I encourage everyone to do is
Yeah.
either approach someone that you're interested in having a mentorship
Yeah.
with, or like get connected with your dental industry reps because they know everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
there's no, and like I was saying, it has to happen naturally, but on another leaf, there is no shame in asking. And is nothing wrong with it not working out or being told no. Like,
Yeah,
what's the worst that can happen? Oh,
exactly.
well, you're in the same place that you started. So,
And Nicole, you graduated in 2021 from the
University
University
of
of
Alberta.
Alberta, and you're just north of Calgary,
Yeah.
and you're killing it as an associate.
I,
Just,
I,
how did you find that associateship?
so funny enough, that practice is very comprehensive family style practice, and they didn't have any aesthetics when I started. I just love it a lot, and I started doing it when the opportunity presented, and then word of mouth got out among the community, and just more people started showing up for that specific need, and it just kind of flourished from there. But how I found the practice was I vibe checked. It wasn't necessarily, there's so many things that are important to all the newly grads listening to this. There's so many things to consider, but I think the biggest thing that I prioritized was finding a place that you can be respected and grow and have the opportunity to try all of the different things that you want to try. Um, because it is important, as annoying as I found it in my first year, because I knew that I liked cosmetic stuff. I was being told left, right, and center, do everything, do surgery, do root canals. And so I really put my heart into that and I did everything. And this practice allowed me to do that. I could do anything except for implants. We don't have a surgical suite there. So I'm not doing implants yet, but that's on the to-do list, which we'll talk about later.
That's awesome. And then how
Yeah,
did you get into the cosmetic side of dentistry?
So I grew up dancing and in the performing arts and always being encouraged to be creative. And in dental school, that was a candle snuffed area of my life. Creativity was felt hard to come by. And so I really tapped into dancing while I was still in dental school to satisfy that need in me. But when I came out, I realized how many options you have as a dentist and how broad the career is. And cosmetic dentistry always spoke to me because it had that creative, independent aspect to it. Um, and I also just love people and being challenged by people and that really, tough social interaction. And every aspect of dentistry has that. But with cosmetic dentistry, you're especially challenged to really know the patient because it is so, it's what they want. It's not always what you want. And I find that it not only challenges my creativity, because sometimes the patient comes and they just say, do what you want. I'm like, sweet, okay. And then sometimes they come and they're like, look at this picture from 2005. I really liked my smile here. I want it to look exactly like this. And that's actually one of the easier cases because you have something to work with. But then there's those cases where people know what they want, but they don't know how to explain it. And so then you really got to get to know them. So yeah, it's the combination of the independence and the creativity. I love making all things beautiful. I love, dance was a big inspiration in that, but I love presentation. I love turning things that most people maybe turn a blind eye to or think are not so beautiful and presenting it in a way that can change their perspective and make them see it in a beautiful way. Like with food, I wouldn't call myself a chef, but I love doing charcuterie boards because I love presenting the food in a way that people can admire. And it's with teeth too. Like people think teeth are gross, but I love the challenge of making it beautiful and natural. And there's beauty in nature. So there's just so many aspects to it that I love.
Oh, I love that. You're finding the diamond in the rough. You're
Yeah.
not only making someone's teeth beautiful, you're making their inner being, their soul beautiful too, because you're bringing out the best in them by getting
Yeah,
to know them.
it's the most rewarding part of cosmetic dentistry is helping people reach a new level of confidence. And I will say there's a difference between um, confidence and like innate self-worth. I think
Hmm.
those are different things, and a new smile is not going to bring you self-worth. That's something that is truly deeply something that people need to work on the inside.
Hmm.
But confidence can help you bring you to the next level to realize your self-worth. For some people, it's a very independent pathway. So don't take anything I'm saying as the pathway. But the self-confidence that I see my patients go through is crazy. So
So
that's,
rewarding.
yeah.
And then how did you get trained in the photography, veneers? What did you do?
That that is that is tough because cosmetic dentistry is not for at University of Alberta at least it is not focused on at all. I do feel very lucky. I feel like the energy that you put out is usually recognized and met. And I have always aspired to do this kind of dentistry. So I did find myself having cases even in dental school that did satisfy this a little bit. I think a big thing with that is because I wasn't shy to talk about it with my patients in a way that was not judgmental, but in a caring way. Like I got to know them well enough that I knew that that's something that they wanted. So I feel like most dental students wouldn't, be confident to talk about those options with patients. And I wasn't shy to offer it as an option, and it was met with excitement. So in dental school, I had like my first 4 unit crown case, and it was on a patient that I'll never forget. And she was deteriorating from Parkinson's, and I saw her from year 1 to year 4, and her new smile brought her so much joy, and it didn't matter what was happening with the rest of her body. It was something that she'd wanted her whole life, and she felt like she deserved it. And that was probably like a big Kickstarter into that realm. So ever since dental school, I was very passionate and seeking out mentorship in that realm because I knew it was something I wasn't really offered in dental school. I was lucky enough to have a progressive instructor who really believed in bonding, and we were still learning amalgam fillings in dental school. So I bonded with him about bonding. I got into BioClear, and that was one of the first CE I did. Went and did that training, and then I did some lower anterior interproximal cases. So I got comfortable with that. And then I knew I wanted to be in Calgary, and I just searched for someone that I thought was amazing at aesthetic dentistry, and I found Dr. Gordon Chi. Had
Yes.
no affiliation or ties to him prior. I just reached out to him, and he was willing to have me in his practice as a student. And I went and shadowed him, and we just kicked it off. Like I was saying, am your mother? Are you my mother or father in this case? And we just genuinely became really good friends. And with his photography and my dancing, that also helped break the ice. And we did some photo shoots because it helped me stay in it with my dancing, and it helped challenge his photography and add to his portfolio. So that relationship grew, and I learned a lot from him and inspired by him and what he's doing with his practice. So I took all of his Elevate CE courses, and I would strongly encourage dentists if they have daily restorative courses, photography courses, and veneer courses. So I would encourage all of those. Um, and then I was lucky enough to kind of to have one-on-one training with him with veneers. So that really kickstarted my career for sure. And then photography has been a long I think you can learn it quickly, but with how busy I am in my practice, I was working 6 days a week at one point, and you're exhausted when you come home at the end of the day. I found it hard to learn photography because you do have to put a lot of time, and you just have to play. You have to get to know your camera. I have an unmeasurable amount of pictures of my boyfriend and my cat, um, practicing. My sisters, they have a lot of photos of them, and you just got to practice. You can take courses and YouTube, and I was lucky enough because my boyfriend also happened to be passion photography, just throughout his younger years. He has all the equipment, and he's taught me quite a bit as well. So that was lucky. Um, so yeah, that is one that you just have to put a lot of time into, I find. You can get a setup and get pretty good at before and after shots clinical chair side without really knowing what you're doing because
Mhm.
you just have the two settings that you need. But to be able to present your work in a way that's speaks a little bit more, and is a little bit more presentable other than just a clinical lab style
Yeah.
photo. You have to know what you're doing and you have to be able to play with the lighting and stuff. So that's taken me, I'd say I bought my camera 2 years ago. So I feel like I'm just starting to get to the point where I can play with it. I feel like it could have been sooner, but I worked too much. So
But Nicole, I
uh,
want to point out a few things. First of all, that story of that patient that you had at U
ugh,
of A,
I'm
like
trying
that
not to
brought tears
cry
to
when I
my eye.
think
I know, I
about
had
it.
tears in my eye too. Like, not only did she feel that she was worth it, you knew she was worth it. So that
Yeah,
combination is why you got such a good clinical outcome.
yeah,
And the second thing is like just reaching out to Gordon Chi, who's like the guru in photography and cosmetic dentistry, and just saying like, "Hey, can I learn from you?" Like that's what we have to do. We have to like reach out to people who are experts and ask for help. And then with the photography, like you have to practice. And
yeah,
you said it takes 2 years. Like it's a
yeah.
dedication.
Yeah.
And you take beautiful photography, beautiful photos. Like if
I
anyone wants to see like next level cosmetic dentistry photography, check out Nicole's Instagram page.
I'm still trying to learn. Thank you.
So
It's a
Nicole, you're
forever learning.
when I was a new grad, like even now, I have a hard time presenting those treatment plans that are thousands of dollars. So how do you do that?
I never think about the money. I never, well, okay, I do because it's a human with their
Yes.
wallet and I have to be respectful of their financial boundaries.
Yes.
Um, but I always gauge it from their desire because a new smile, what it can bring you in your life is priceless. And if they recognize that, then the money isn't really much as it's not a roadblock, it's just a hurdle that we have to overcome together. So you're always gauging, how bad do they want it?
Mm.
And I'm still learning how to have these conversations because as the years go on, I'm doing bigger and bigger cases. I first started with like a single composite veneer. And
Okay.
then and then I got better and I started charging a little bit more than just fee guide for a composite veneer because I take a lot of time and I've spent a ton of money and time getting good at it on courses. But so knowing that you have that background where you've invested thousands of dollars into it and you know that what you're providing them is valuable, that helps. And having them know that it's valuable. Those are your
Mm-hmm.
two foundations. And never being salesy. You're coming from a place of love and genuine care for the person.
Mm-hmm.
um, so it always usually starts with either them just being comfortable enough with me and just telling me straight up what they don't like about their smile, or me being comfortable enough with them to just ask from a caring point, are you happy with your smile? Is there anything that's ever bothered you? Do you think about it in photos?
Mm-hmm.
And if I see things that I think could be improved, but they respond with, I love my smile. It's characteristic of me. I would never want to change it. Then that's where the conversation ends
Yes.
because their oral health is in check, and that's all that matters. So that's the end of the conversation. But if someone presents and says, yeah, this has always bothered me, then we get into the conversation and I start by just providing them options. And then gauge their interest on the option side of things because I talk about what's involved in the clinical time and commitment side of things. And if that seems to deter them, then it's, I'm not really even interested in talking about it too much further because I know that they're not super serious about it.
Yes.
Um, but if they're still interested at that point, then I bring up the finance side of things, which honestly, by that point, people are more just wondering like, okay, how much time do I need to save up for? Or, can I make this work right now?
Hmm.
Because at that point in their head, they're already thinking, wow, no one's ever asked me about this before. And I have so many patients say that, like, why are you providing this as an option? And this has bugged me for years. Why has a dentist never provided this? And they're not asking in an angry way. They're asking in a like, oh, like thank you
Yes.
kind of
Oh,
way. And I respond with, we all have our own journeys as dentists, and I've decided to be really passionate about transforming people's smiles. And it's something that I can offer and talk to with my patients. And it's not something that every dentist does. And it's at no fault of prior dentists. It's just not a service that they provide. And I think a lot of patients don't recognize that we all niche down into to different things usually.
yeah.
And my first year I did do everything, but as the years go on, I still do surgery, I still do root canals, but I'm a lot more selective with the cases. I'm not going to take
Good.
on that calcified crown, 5 canal molar anymore. I'm
Yeah.
going to refer that because um, the day I had a patient come back with that kind of case and I asked how their root canal went with a specialist, and they said, oh, it was awesome. I was in the chair for half an hour. It was a massage chair. It was awesome. Now I'm here for my crown. I was trying to hold my jaw up because I'm like, there's no way I would get that difficult of a case done in half an hour from start to
Yes.
finish. And that's when the light bulb clicked, and I said, there's specialists for a reason. I
Exactly.
can't be a hero, jack of all trades. That saying goes, you're jack of all trades, but you're master of none.
Yes.
So I want to be a master at cosmetic.
Good.
And so I have to be willing to give some things up, which has been probably one of the most challenging parts of this cosmetic journey. But I just have to stop and take the bigger picture and recognize,
Yeah.
find myself of that. So
I
that's how I
like,
answer. Long-winded way of
yeah.
how I answer that
I like
question.
how you tried everything in the beginning. I did the same thing as well. And then you find your icky guy, which you posted about before, like what you're passionate about, what you love doing, what you're good at, and when you can make money for.
Yeah.
Um, and
And it,
I also, yeah, and I also like how you said when you present treatment plans, you don't think about the money
yeah, you do
because you
have to have
shouldn't.
that
Yeah.
conversation because I did learn in the beginning, I would accidentally not talk to them about the money. It wasn't that I was trying to avoid it because I wasn't comfortable with it. It was because I was so focused on, what we could do for them. And I incorrectly would forget to talk about the money. And then that would be too much of a hurdle for them and they wouldn't proceed.
Mm,
So that is something that I learned that you do need to talk about because it's not fair to the front, first off, in my
yes,
opinion,
that's right.
to have them come out with this idea and then the front presents the cost to them and then they're
Hmm.
like, "Ugh."
Yeah,
I think it's fair to the front. I think you need to do the hard work and I think that it needs to come from the doctor so
I
that
agree.
the value is there. And they're not, then the front's not the bad guy. The
That's
front is
true.
just the
And
helping
everything
them.
has to be transparent.
Yes,
And you should talk about the money, but that shouldn't be the focus. For example, when you
correct.
look at the patient, you shouldn't think, oh, look at all the money I can make from this patient. Instead, you should be like, look
Never.
how I could help this patient. And if you
Yes.
come
If
from
you
it from
approach it,
love, like you said, the patient's not even going to think that you're doing it for the money.
yeah. I've had countless amounts of patients want things prior, but have been approached with greed. Like it's
Yes,
so detectable.
it
Humans are
is.
smart. We have intuition, and it is so obvious as much as you try to be discreet about it. So
Yes,
don't ever um do that. And if you find yourself doing it like that, then you're probably not passionate enough about it, and you should maybe consider thinking about a different form of dentistry that you are that passionate enough about that it's natural for you to talk about.
Yes.
And that's going back to the ikiga as well. It's not always met with ease. I actually found it really socially and emotionally challenging to accept that cosmetic dentistry was for me because when I used to care what people thought and I was insecure about other dentists judging me for doing cosmetic dentistry. There may still be that criticism out there, but I am so blind to it. I could care less. I know that I'm transforming lives, and that's all that matters to
Good.
me. So I'm so blind to it now. But you really have to get over that in all areas of life and in all areas of dentistry. But if you want to put yourself out there and be on media and provide these things for your patients, you cannot care what other people may be judging you for. So that was something that I was met with resistance at first. I knew I loved it, but I resisted it. And I was doing endo workshops and I was doing all this other CE and it just wasn't it. But I was
Yes.
denying. I was in denial. And then I finally got over myself and realized this is what I meant to do. I'm going to
Good.
meet it with grace and just if there's judgment, that's for them, not for me. And that's when I really fell into it.
And I'm sure there's less judgment now because you're not judging yourself because you
I
realize
honestly I
that
think that
this
was
is
really
your
the
path.
only judge. I was definitely my biggest judgment. And I'm sure there was people, but I don't even know and I don't care. So yeah, get out of your own way. Don't accidentally cancel yourself before you even try.
It's true. Now,
Yeah,
with cosmetic dentistry, patients have high expectations. So,
definitely.
what type of discussions do you have with them so they're happier?
I beat them to any failure mentally before they can even get there. I case select very, very, you got to be picky with your case selection. And if you're not at the advanced level to take on harder cases, don't take them on.
Hmm.
I'm still learning occlusion and all of the red flags. And I just joined an institute in residency, Smile Trend Institute. They're based out of the States. I'm the only Canadian a part of the group. I'm very proud to be a part of that community. It's a group of really highly skilled cosmetic dentists, and it's an abundance mindset, and we're on messages, sharing cases and challenging each other and being vulnerable and saying, you should do this or you could correct this. And that has been very helpful to case select and learn because now I'm not only learning from my mistakes, I'm learning from other clinicians' hurdles. So yeah, being case selective. And in the beginning, when I wasn't comfortable with dealing with malocclusions, etc., I would say no, or we can put you through Invisalign. And Invisalign has become a huge part of my practice, and I'm quite passionate about that. And I'd say half of my cosmetic cases go through Invisalign first
Great.
because it's also a great way of knowing how eager and passionate people are to get that smile. If they're willing to spend the time and money on Invisalign to make their cosmetic work last, then like you're working with a really good patient and dedicated person. So going back to your original question, how do I
Yeah.
maneuver those challenges is yeah, I just try and beat them to it and say these are the challenges, these are the potential failures that might occur, and this is why I want to do this treatment plan to mitigate those failures and not have to deal with them. If you choose to do that pathway, then the chance of those failures is much lower. If you choose to not, then I can predict that you're going to have these problems in the next little while, and I need you to be accepting of that and know that we're going to be, fixing things if that's the case. And I'll never actually take on a case where I know it's going to fail because that's just
Good.
responsible, and I don't think that's moral to have someone spend money on something that's going to fail. But if they're in the higher risk category, then it's definitely something you want to be talking to them about.
That's
So
good.
yeah,
Case
just
selection,
selection and taking
lots
the
of
time.
conversations beforehand. Yes.
Yeah. And putting the time and money into continuing education
Yeah.
because that's the only way you're going to avoid failures.
Yeah, I love that community you're part of, Smile Trend. And how
Yeah.
you're just not showing, look at my beautiful before and after. It's
Oh
like,
yeah,
here's
it's
my
so
failure.
vulnerable.
This is what happened. This is how you can
Yeah.
solve it.
And it's
Good.
also helping each other prevent failures because we're like,
Yes.
hey, I'm treatment planning this case. Am I missing something? What do you guys see? It's
And
really
then
helpful.
can you share a situation where the case didn't go well and how you handled it?
Yeah, I handled it with excitement, as weird as that is, because
Wow.
I didn't show the patient I was excited. Obviously, I was like, but I'm excited to have areas where I can learn. It's
Mhm.
like an exponentially expedited path to learning. And it's not free, but you didn't go and fly on a plane to learn that. You like have it in your chair and you are wholeheartedly
Yeah.
learning that so quickly. So, it's first off met with excitement and grace and seeing it as I have to deal with this problem. It's met with I get to solve this. I get to be the person to fix this and met with responsibility. There's a difference in some cases where it's the patient's fault. And I've had a case where a composite veneer like totally chipped and it was because they were playing with their dog and the dog's tooth like fully slammed them in the face. So, that they weren't too upset because they knew they're like, oops, my fault. But
Yes.
then I've had other cases where I didn't equilibrate the occlusion properly. I didn't, um, my understanding of their bite wasn't proper, and their canine kept chipping. And I
Mhm.
fixed that stinking tooth 3 times. And this was like my very first. It was a 8 unit composite veneer case, and the first time I fixed it, I will call myself insane because I did the same thing that I did when I first did the tooth. I failed to recognize that it was my fault. And so he came back in like 5 months later with the exact same problem. And I'm like, okay, silly Nicole, yes, you're running 4 chairs right now, but you need to stop and think about this and not repeat your mistake. And so I had to change the way I shaped that tooth, and I had to adjust his anterior guidance. He was in an anterior guidance type of inclusion. So I couldn't just group function him, otherwise I'd have to
Yes.
change all of them. But I didn't have the angle proper.
Yeah.
So I had to fix that. And by the third time it failed, I had taken enough continuing education to see the problem. But you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, ignorance is bliss. It feels great to blame the patient or but really you're going to be stuck with problems for a long time. So, the more continuing education I take, the more risks I see everywhere, the more problems I see everywhere. And you do become pickier, but you also can predict things a little bit more and fix it better.
That's amazing how you look at problems. Instead of thinking like this is a punch in the ego, this is the patient's fault, it can't be mine. You're like, this is an opportunity for me to get schooled.
Totally. Yeah. Of course it's a punch in the ego, but you don't ever want to have like ego
Yes.
where you're too good to have problems. You're too skilled to,
Yes.
that is not a thing. You are going to be so stuck as a clinician and as a human if you're too good for problems. So just welcoming hurdles with grace is going to expedite your learning.
You're right,
So
because
just
you learn so much from your failures.
and
So
being
try to
honest,
avoid them, but when they do happen, embrace them.
yeah, and being honest with the patient.
Mhm.
Don't ever blame them if it's not their fault. Like they're not stupid.
Yeah,
They'll just lose trust in you if,
exactly.
and so that's once again coming back to the conversations ahead of time. Um, but also just being super dedicated to the patient and being open and willing to fix it for them. making them a priority.
Yeah.
They will, I've never had anyone mad at me because
Good.
I showed that I cared about them and I was going to fix it for them.
Yeah, instead of thinking of it as, oh, I failed, because if you internalize that, you're not going to be able to help them. Instead, think, my patient needs me right now.
Yeah.
So I have to do whatever I can to help them.
Yeah. And thankfully, I've case selected well enough that I haven't had a case where I can't handle the failures,
Yeah.
but I could only actually in my first year, I did take on an extraction that I did not evaluate the risk factors properly, and the root was so curved, and I broke it, and it was a medically compromised senior patient, and I did not want to go trowing through all that bone.
Good.
I did not want to put them at that risk. So I was just honest with them and I said, I think that this is beyond the capacity of my practice here and I care about being conservative and I don't think that I can do that for you, being apologetic, and I sent them to the surgeon. I was just about to say I haven't had a case where I case selected out of my scope that I couldn't
Mm.
fix the problem, but I did. I did have to send
Good.
someone to
You
a
did
surgeon.
exactly the right thing. Instead of
Yeah.
doubling down and thinking, okay, I'm
Oh,
going to get that curved root tip out,
I've heard
you
horror
stopped.
stories. Know your limits, because if
Yes.
if I had, I mean, I don't know, maybe if I'd went for it, it would have been okay, but I didn't want to risk it. Surgery is not something that I've taken advanced courses in, and I didn't think it was fair to the patient to be selfish and learn on them,
Yeah.
especially, it's their well-being is always at the forefront.
Very.
So take care of the patient first, and they'll take care of you in return.
Oh, good motto.
Mhm.
So, Nicole, what kind of struggles did you have during first year and how did you overcome them?
I'd say the biggest struggle was going from 1 to 2 patients a day in dental school to like 20 to 30. And I'm so
Exactly.
grateful that I didn't realize how busy the practice I was getting into, because I went in thinking like, oh, I'll do 1 chair today, I'll probably see like 5 patients. That's a lot compared to 2, but I'll be okay. And I sat down and I looked at the schedule and it was like 20 patients and three chairs. And I was like, okay. And the hygienist told me that they didn't realize how stressed I was, but my watch kept telling me, Nicole, you are at risk of like a heart attack. Like my heart rate was elevated through the roof the entire day. And I had
Wow.
so much adrenaline. So that was hard, but I got used to that pretty quickly
Okay.
because every day I'm seeing that many patients and you just dive in and you prove to yourself you can do it.
Okay.
Um, but then what I found challenging was the multitasking, doing dentistry while being aware of the entire clinic,
Yes.
knowing how to be efficient with your time. Okay, I'm going to freeze this patient. I have 2 exams to do. I need to go and get those done, but respect that they're paying for an exam, so I got to give them value.
Yes. Yeah.
But then go and not make my operative patient wait too long. Like balancing all of that was a big struggle. And as you can tell from this interview, I love to talk. So the senior dentists in my practice were on me like, Nicole, you got to start timing yourself. Like you're in the exam way too long and you're providing value, but the hygienist has to do their job too. So I struggled with that for probably a whole year. And shout out to my team for being like sticking it out with me, and they saw the passion that I have, so it never really bothered them, but I did cause some extra stress. Turnaround times in the office
Yeah.
were tight, and that's not fair to the hygienists or the support staff. So being aware, and if you feel like you can't handle it, then just have like if you can appoint the office manager or your main assistant to like literally direct you where you need to go and to not have an ego and let them
Yeah.
do that for you. Even still to this day, we have rules in the office now for me. We've implemented them because I want to be fair to the staff. And if they see that I'm getting too passionate and excited about a case, like I'm like, can you please kick me? Like I go blindfolder and I'm like, oh, I want to help you. So we have rules now where in an exam, if it's going to turn into a bigger case,
Yeah.
we cut the cord. We say, I would love to see you for a consultation.
Good.
Rebook them because that time slot for hygiene and exam did not come with a time for a full consult.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
true.
something that we've implemented and that's literally
I thought
like
you were going to say that they have word limits. It's like, okay, Nicole, you've reached your 1,000 word maximum.
I should probably have that. I should probably have that. Um, but yeah, that was a struggle. And then the other struggle was I grew up in Calgary and I have my beautiful social support circle here. But when I was in school in Edmonton, I was able to be very selfish and just focus on my education, and I didn't really have to balance it with social time. So coming back to Calgary, I did find it very challenging incorporating things other than dentistry in my life. And I was working a lot. I worked 6 days a week. I worked Saturdays. I would work like 13-hour days sometimes, never by choice, but I was just covering
Wow.
for the senior dentist in my practice. They were going through things that they needed coverage for. And um, I don't think people even knew I lived in Calgary my first year practicing. I went to work and I went home and I like studied my cases, and that's when I was learning Invisalign. So I would be on calls with the orthodontist that I had hired to train me, and we would be on like training sessions. So teeth was my life. And so it was a struggle because although I'm very passionate about it and I loved it, it did lead to burnout because it's
Mm.
super unrealistic to think that that's how you can lead your life. So I learned that very quickly and the hard way.
So now what are
Uh,
you doing to manage your stress? Like how many days a week are you working?
I
What are you
work
doing
less.
outside of work?
Yeah, I work less. I took a day off, so I work 4 to 5 days a week now. I use that extra day off to do continuing education and my social media, which is a whole other topic. We could do a whole podcast on that. It is a lot of work, but it also helped propel me as a human to challenge my vulnerability and growth. So that's a whole other topic. But now, yeah, I work less so that I have more time to clean my house and to take care of myself. I prioritize workout classes and staying passionate about dancing. And I love to cook, and take that time to connect with my friends and family. I am blessed with a beautiful support circle that stays by my side no matter how much I prioritize or don't prioritize them. And they just know how passionate I am about my career, and they aren't offended, and they support it, and they know that I love them, and I do come around and I prioritize them, but I'm a lot better at prioritizing them now. Um, because when you're sick or when you go through a
Mm.
personal challenge or a chapter that changes in your life, and those people are the ones to show up for you, it really puts things into perspective. And you're reminded that, I'm very passionate about my career, but it's also, what am I going to be doing when I'm 70?
Yes.
And what if I'm sick, and who's going to be there for you? So knowing that that's important.
I'm glad that you're prioritizing relationships, yourself, your hobbies. If anyone wants a sourdough recipe from
Yeah.
Nicole, slide into her DM. She'll give it to you.
Yeah. I'll give you a little bit of my Doug, which I was blessed to have given Doug my starter.
Oh, is that the name of your
Um,
starter kit, Doug?
yes. Um, Doug from Up, my favorite movie.
Oh, I love that with the
I don't actually love
balloons.
cartoons or musicals that much at all, but I love Up because I'm a hopeless romantic.
Oh,
So, super cute. And it's got a cute dog. So,
yeah. We love squirrels.
yes. Yeah. So Doug, yeah, come on by if you're in Calgary. I'll give you a little piece of Doug and you can keep him alive. it's hard to keep a sourdough alive, but you can just freeze him or put him in the fridge if life gets busy. And yeah, I was telling you that I realized I could equate learning dentistry as learning sourdough. There are a million different ways that you could make a sourdough bread. And there are a million different ways you can do dentistry. And if you listen to all of them, you will be so overwhelmed and feel like you're drowning. So you just need to find what works for you and run with it. And then as you get more comfortable with it, then you start exploring. Just last week I was getting a little crazy and I put some cranberries in my sourdough. At
Ooh.
first, I was way too scared to do that because I'd be worried that it would weigh it down
Mhm.
but I'm comfortable enough with what I've chosen that now I can expand.
Literally, the sourdough does expand.
Yeah.
So, Nicole, any words of wisdom for those new dentists out there?
Don't have an ego, be vulnerable, as much as you might not like to hear it, as I didn't like to hear it. Push yourself and do all kinds of dentistry because you might surprise yourself. I will admit, when I was graduating, I did think that, like, I debated applying to an endo residency or a pediatric residency because I felt that those were areas in dentistry that were underserved. And, the wait lists were huge. And I felt, that that could help bridge that gap. And I love kids. I want my own kids someday, but that is just, I got into cosmetic dentistry and that is very far from kids.
Yeah.
And I realized it's not my favorite area because you have to be a comedian, a magician, a rapid fire answer question, a distractor, and like a wicked super fast dentist. And you can do it, but I just find that it takes a lot of energy out of me.
Yeah.
And because I'm putting so much energy into other places. So I still love seeing kids, but it's not a growing area in my practice. And it's funny because I thought that that's what I might specialize in. So that's why I'm saying
Ah,
for young grads, like definitely do it all because you might
yeah.
surprise yourself and don't be ignorant to how you feel about things. If you are looking at your schedule and you see things and you go, ugh, like it just to your
Yeah.
core, like upsets you, it's probably not something that's going to fulfill you in your practice.
That's a great way of thinking of it. Go with your gut.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, you might just be naturally talented at something. Like one of my best friends, he's just wicked at root canals and he just has always been really good at it. And, you tend to like things that you're good at too. So, he chose that path because he's good at it. And then you learn to like it so much because you're good. So.
So, Nicole, to end things off, what are your goals?
My goals, I would love to create my own clinic space where I can spoil the crap out of my staff. That's something that I am really passionate about and feel that I have a lot of borders on as an associate. I can verbally appreciate them and I can show how much I think how valuable they are to the team, but I can't really spoil them in the ways that I want to. So I see that and I see, my practice still providing comprehensive dentistry, but definitely niching into the cosmetic areas. I want my practice to feel like you're coming to not a dental clinic. It's really hard to accomplish that with the sound of drills in the background, so I won't be unrealistic, but I want it to be a safe place for people to come to talk about, their smile dreams. And I want a golden retriever with my boyfriend, and we want a family
Oh,
in the future. So I want it all, really, but
it'll
we're
happen.
trying to be responsible and do it at a pace that we can handle.
You're going to be a wicked parent and practice owner, and you're already a leader in dentistry. And I just can't wait to see what's next with Nicole Robbins. I'm so glad to be matched with you, and thank you
I'm
so much
honored
for this
to be your
time.
friend. And yeah, thank you so much for having
You're
me.
welcome. So, how can the audience reach out to you?
On my Instagram, Dr. Nicole _Robbins. Um, and I'm sure if things progress, then we can get to texting level. Like online dating.
It's true. That's how we
Yeah.
met. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Nicole. It was an honor, and I learned so much from you. So, like you said, this is a
I'm so
mutually
excited for this journey with it.
beneficial match made in heaven. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the New Dentist Study Club podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, watch us on YouTube, share and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram at New Dentist Study Club.